In 1911, Queen Mary commissioned a parure for the Delhi Durbar, emeralds reset in platinum, designed for imperial display. Within 11 years, she had the settings destroyed and the stones redistributed. The public believed they were seeing continuity. What they were seeing was preference disguised as heritage. The jewels at the ceremony were real. What she wore afterward was a reconstruction. Same stones, different story. This is not about gemstones being counterfeit. This is about history being rewritten through melting and resetting, about lineage being edited to suit vanity, about objects marketed as eternal being dismantled the moment they became inconvenient. The fakery was not in the materials, it was in the claim that what survived was the same thing. The coronation of George V as Emperor of India required symbols of permanence. Queen Mary purchased the Cambridge emeralds, stones with documented lineage, and had them mounted in modern settings meant to announce continuity. Tiara, necklace, stomacher, earrings. The photographs from December 1911 show the complete parure, unified and deliberate. By 1922, the platinum had been melted. Thousands of hours of craftsmanship, materials worth millions in modern value, reduced to scrap because the weight was inconvenient. The emeralds existed, but no longer as what had been promised. She replaced history with preference and called it adaptation. The settings were too heavy, records claim, insufficiently versatile. So the stones were extracted, scattered across new pieces, and never reunited. The original commission, the object created for that specific imperial moment, survives only in photographs. What came after carried the same stones, but not the same intent. The difference between original and replacement is the difference between inheritance and cosmetic surgery. One is received, the other is performed. There is a business model in destruction. Breaking jewellery is not delicate work. It is controlled violence. Stones are ripped from their claws with specialised tools. Settings are heated to temperatures that liquefy platinum and gold, reducing months of craftsmanship to puddles that cool into shapeless ingots. The work that goes into dismantling a tiara takes hours. The work that went into creating it took months. Houses like Cartier and Garrard did not merely tolerate this practice, they profited from it. A queen who commissions a tiara and wears it for decades is a single sale. A queen who commissions, dismantles, and recommissions is a recurring client. Queen Mary was their most reliable customer not because she loved jewellery, but because she kept destroying it. Between 1910 and 1953, she ordered the dismantling of at least 24 major pieces from the royal collection, each disassembly generating a new commission, a new design fee, a new fabrication contract. The incentive structure was clear. Impermanence was more profitable than durability. A piece that lasted generations represented lost revenue. A piece that lasted 5 years represented opportunity. Queen Mary's preference for redesign was not aesthetic refinement. It was the economic engine of an entire industry that survived by ensuring nothing royal ever stayed finished. The Koh-i-Noor entered British possession in 1849, taken from Lahore after the British annexation of Punjab. The boy who handed it over was 10 years old. Duleep Singh, the last Maharaja of the Sikh Empire, was forced to present the 186-carat diamond to Queen Victoria as part of the treaty terms that ended his sovereignty. He was not consulted. He was told what to give and when to give it. By the time he was an adult, he had been educated in England, anglicised, converted to Christianity, and made into a display of successful colonisation. In 1854, he was invited to view the Koh-i-Noor at Windsor Castle. It had been recut. Prince Albert, dissatisfied with the stone's appearance under European lighting, had ordered Dutch gem cutters to reduce it from 186 carats to 105 carats, removing 81 carats, nearly half its mass, to improve brilliance according to Western standards. Duleep Singh held the recut diamond in his hand. He examined what had been taken from his family, from his empire, and then reduced further to suit the aesthetics of the empire that had taken it. He returned the stone without comment. Years later, he would attempt to reclaim it, writing letters, making legal arguments, demanding its return. All requests were denied. He died in Paris in 1893, estranged from both England and India, having spent decades trying to recover what had been cut away in his childhood. The recut diamond did not achieve what Prince Albert intended. Set into Queen Victoria's coronation crown in 1853, it appeared smaller than expected under the gaslights of staterooms. The technical upgrade produced a visual downgrade. The stone that had commanded presence for centuries now required explanation. So it was reset for Queen Alexandra in 1902, then for Queen Mary in 1911, then for the Queen Mother in 1937. Each attempt tried to recover what had been destroyed in an act of cultural arrogance disguised as improvement. The original stone no longer exists. What remains is a corrected version that requires constant redesign to justify the correction. The 1853 crown sits in the royal collection, unworn since the 1860s, a monument to the fact that you cannot recover mass once it has been cut away. The British crown recut a symbol of conquest to suit British taste, then spent a century attempting to make the decision appear reversible. The Bolsheviks took power in 1917 and inherited the richest jewellery collection on earth. The Romanov court jewels represented 3 centuries of accumulation: diamonds from the Urals, emeralds from Colombia, sapphires from Ceylon, pearls from the Persian Gulf. The collection included the imperial crown, worn at every coronation since Catherine the Great, set with nearly 5,000 diamonds and a 398-carat red spinel. The nuptial crown, worn by every Romanov bride since the 18th century. The Orlov diamond, 189 carats, mounted in the imperial scepter. Objects that had survived wars, revolutions, and regime changes. By 1922, the Soviet government needed foreign currency. The jewels were catalogued for liquidation. In 1927, Christie's in London held an auction. The nuptial crowns sold for £310, roughly $30,000 in modern value. A tiara that had been worn at imperial weddings for over a century went to a private buyer who had it dismantled within months. The stones were extracted and reset into Art Deco brooches and cocktail rings for the European market. The liquidation continued for a decade. Pieces were sold in bulk lots, weighed by the kilo, priced below market to move inventory quickly. Tiaras that had taken years to design and fabricate were treated as scrap. Settings were melted, stones were redistributed. Enamel work that had survived revolutions was destroyed because enamel had no resale value. The Soviets did not sell the jewels to preserve them in new contexts. They sold them to buy tractors, to fund industrialization, to convert symbols of imperial power into liquid assets that could be spent on machinery. The process took less than 10 years, 3 centuries of accumulation, dismantled and dispersed for agricultural equipment. The empire spent 300 years building the collection. The Soviets liquidated it in bulk, below market, for farm tools. The Nizam of Hyderabad was the richest man in the world in the 1930s and 1940s. His wealth exceeded that of most national governments. He owned palaces, gold reserves, and a jewellery collection, valued in the billions in modern terms. Among his possessions was the Jacob diamond, 184 carats, one of the largest diamonds ever discovered in India. He kept it in his palace. He used it as a paperweight. The diamond sat on his desk, holding down documents, accumulating dust. When not in use, it was reportedly kept in a slipper. There was no display case, no security beyond the general security of the palace. The Nizam owned so much that individual objects, regardless of value, became functionally disposable. The Jacob diamond was not Jenguide, it was convenient. In 1948, India annexed Hyderabad. The Nizam's reign ended. His possessions were seized or catalogued by the Indian government. The Jacob diamond was removed from the palace and eventually placed in a museum. It is now displayed behind glass, identified by weight and origin, stripped of the context that made it absurd. The museum label does not mention that it was used as a paperweight. It does not mention the slipper. The diamond's bizarre personal history was erased in favour of institutional presentation. Luxury so extreme, it devalues itself. The Nizam's treatment of the Jacob diamond was not neglect born of ignorance. It was neglect born of excess. When wealth becomes incomprehensible, objects lose individual meaning. The diamond survived annexation, but its story did not. What remains is a gemstone in a museum, presented as heritage, stripped of the stupidity that defined its use. Consuelo Vanderbilt's father paid approximately $2.5 million in 1895 for her marriage to the 9th Duke of Marlborough, equivalent to over $100 million today. The transaction was explicit. The Vanderbilt fortune would repair Blenheim Palace and restore the Marlborough family's finances. In exchange, Consuelo would receive a title and entry into British aristocracy. The Duke commissioned a tiara as part of the arrangement, diamonds in detachable sections that could be reconfigured, worn as brooches, adapted to different occasions. Modern, practical, engineered for flexibility. She wore it at her wedding in 1895. She wore it when presented to Queen Victoria. She wore it through the 1896 season. By 1900, she had stopped. The Duke spent her money to restore Blenheim, then required her to wear his family's historical jewels at public events to obscure her American origin. Borrowed tiaras replaced the commissioned piece. Items from the Marlborough collection, rented pieces from Cartier, anything with an established provenance that could mask the financial transaction that had made the marriage possible. The detachable tiara disappeared from portraits after 1899. Its flexibility, which had been marketed as sophistication, became evidence of inadequacy. Aristocratic jewellery was not meant to adapt, it was meant to announce that adaptation was unnecessary. A piece that could be disassembled admitted that its wearer might need to economise, might lack access to enough fixed wealth to meet every occasion with a different object. The tiara was flexible, Consuelo was not. She was locked into a marriage contract that had been purchased with her family's industrial fortune, required to perform aristocracy using borrowed symbols, while her own commission was set aside. When the marriage ended in 1921, after 28 years and 2 children, the tiara was not listed among her retained property. It does not appear in any subsequent Marlborough inventory. No sale record exists. The piece either was dismantled quietly or remains locked in storage, unworn, a reminder that objects purchased as part of human transactions rarely survive the dissolution of those arrangements. The marriage lasted 28 years. The tiara lasted 6. Her father's money repaired a palace. The tiara commissioned to mark her entry into aristocracy was erased the moment it became clear she would never be accepted as anything other than American capital in British form. Princess Margaret bought the Koh-i-Noor tiara herself in 1959 for £5,500, approximately $300,000 in modern value. She did not inherit it. She did not receive it as a gift. She purchased it at auction because she wanted control over at least one object in a life where most possessions were assigned by protocol. She wore it at her wedding to Anthony Armstrong Jones in 1960. She wore it in the famous 1967 bathtub portrait by Cecil Beaton, submerged in water, tiara still in place, a deliberate provocation that merged royal symbolism with irreverence. The tiara was hers. She could wear it however she wanted. When she died in 2002, her children inherited her estate and a tax bill. The UK charges inheritance tax on estates above a certain threshold. Margaret's estate, which included property, art and jewellery, generated a liability exceeding £3 million. Her children did not have liquid assets to cover the bill. The solution was a liquidation. In 2006, Christie's auctioned the Baltimore tiara. It sold for £926,400, over $1.8 million in modern value. The buyer was private. The tiara left the family and entered a collection where it would likely never be worn publicly again. Margaret's symbol of independence, the piece she had purchased with her own money and worn in defiance of convention, became a tax payment. Royal rebellion converted into state revenue. The tiara still exists. It is owned by someone, but it no longer carries the context that made it significant. It is no longer Margaret's tiara. It is a former royal tiara sold to satisfy a financial obligation, stripped of the personality that had made it worth photographing in a bathtub. What was purchased as autonomy was liquidated as inventory. Between 1902 and 1953, at least 6 major commissions were completed, delivered, and subsequently refused, dismantled, or erased. Cartier's tiara for Client R in 1902, over 300 diamonds, finished and paid for, was returned before acceptance, held in inventory for 7 years, then disassembled in 1910. The diamonds were redistributed, the platinum was melted, the design sketches remain, marked completed, not delivered. A coronation tiara commissioned for 1953, delivered in May, was never worn at the June ceremony. It was loaned to Princess Margaret once in 1954. She wore it at a private event. No photographs exist. The piece was offered to Princess Anne in the 1970s. She declined. It was offered to Princess Alexandra. She declined. The tiara remains in the royal collection, unworn publicly for 70 years, declined by everyone offered it. Queen Mary's sapphire and diamond tiara, commissioned in 1919, was worn for 3 years before the sapphires were removed and replaced with aquamarines in 1930. The aquamarine version was modified again in 1945. The stones survived through iteration. The designs did not. The halo tiara, created in 1938, was worn briefly, loaned occasionally, transferred to storage by the 1960s. When it resurfaced in 2011 for Catherine Middleton's wedding, press materials called it rediscovered, language that admitted the piece had been set aside for 50 years and required reintroduction as though it had been lost rather than judged insufficient. These were not defective pieces. They were completed commissions that encountered refusal without explanation and were erased rather than displayed. Napoleon III commissioned a ruby and diamond set for Empress Eugénie in 1865. Tiara, necklace, earrings, brooch, designed by François Kramer using rubies from the French crown jewels. She wore it at the Tuileries in January 1867, at a state banquet in March, at the Exposition Universelle in April. 9 months of public display, 6 years of imperial possession. By September 1870, Napoleon had abdicated. The family fled to England. The ruby set was sold in 1872 to settle debts, purchased anonymously and removed from record. In 1887, fragments appeared in a London auction, brooch and earrings only, listed as rubies and diamonds, French origin, circa 1865. They sold separately, unattributed. The tiara and necklace were never recovered. What was commissioned as unified imperial prestige became unidentified components in a secondary market, their origin reduced to catalogue notation. worn for 9 months, intact for 6 years, dispersed for more than 150. What entered as purpose left as fragments, settings dismantled, stones redistributed, frames melted, pieces erased into storage or sold without context. What survived was not the commission. What survived were components repurposed into different forms, carrying no memory of what they were meant to represent. The public saw continuity. What existed was substitution. Photographs remain, sketches remain, stones, in many cases, remain. But the objects as intended do not. They were not destroyed by war or theft or accident. They were destroyed by preference, by dissatisfaction, by tax obligations, by regime change, by the refusal to tolerate an object that no longer suited its owner's requirements. The jewels were real. The expectations were real. What was faked was the claim that either would endure. Money bought the appearance of permanence. Power ensured that appearance could be edited without consequence. Legacy did not survive contact with convenience.